Thank you for staying. The next item on the agenda, communications. I don't have anything. Okay. Item 4 is the superintendent report, science vacancy, and our boiler update.
So we finally found somebody that we wanted to hire for the science vacancy at the middle school. Jessica Blanchfield is joining our 7th and 8th grade science teacher. This is a position that, if you remember correctly, Ms. GC left the makerspace position, and Mrs. Richling, or Ms. Richling, is going to be taking that position, but she stayed in science until we were able to find a qualified candidate. She just finished her, this person we just hired, finished her teaching placement in town at the middle school, and her references were outstanding. So she's going to be joining us on January 7th, and we are excited to have that vacancy complete. That leaves one vacancy still at Hall, and that is the math position that is currently being filled by our interventions. The boiler, I've been informed that the new boiler for Hall School is in at MCOR. This is, I had a question the other day from one of the members of the public. It's an oil-fired hot water boiler. It's going to be installed in the next few weeks. It has a 10-year warranty from light off, and it has a 1-year labor warranty from MCOR, and then it has a 40-year life expectancy if it's maintained. So we look forward to getting that in before we have some really cold temperatures.
So can I have a question? Mm-hmm. So that boiler, I missed a little bit. So is it replaced already, or you are working on replacing it?
So that's what the Board of Finance approved, and they approved it, and now it's ordered, and that was what.
And how long? So how long will it take until it is fully in place, functioning?
They said 3 weeks. Within a few days ago, and then I heard today that it's in. So it should be, they literally take the old boiler out piece by piece though. So it's going to take some time. I'm hoping it's running in a few weeks. So.
Okay, the next item is the financial report. I think everyone has a copy of the budget summary as of January 14th.
So if you look at the programs as you go down here, program 1 looks like it's extremely low because it's already under the -%. The reason for that is we had to, when we built the budget, we did a grant adjustment offset, and it was applied to center school. When we actually had to write the grant this year, we had to, because of the need, the state required us to apply it to Hall. It's still the same pocket of money, the grant money is still there, but it makes it look like center school has no money left, and that's why it looks like Hall School Program 2 has a bunch of money left, and they don't. So, the other thing that you see in Hall School is that those positions that have been vacant, you see savings in that. So that's program 1 and 2. I think I've mentioned this before. It appears like special ed has a bunch of money in it. It does not. We planned for 2 outplacements this year. We currently have 4 outplacements, and that is a significant amount of money. It just has not been billed yet, and whether it's the actual tuition or transportation. So I guarantee you that that special ed number, just because it hasn't been billed yet, doesn't have money in it. Program 4 transportation, we still are waiting for the diesel reimbursement from Region 19. We get that every couple of months. One of the things that we did this year was we created some group stops for both elementary and middle school runs, and I'm hoping to see some diesel savings. Donna is running some numbers for me to look at the amount of diesel we used in September and October of last year and we're going to compare it to the amount of diesel we used so far, September and October this year. It doesn't, we'll know in those just a couple of months. It doesn't need to be longer than that. So I'm hoping we're going to see some savings in the amount of diesel we're using because of group stops. Program 5, the health services just has supply money left in it. It's just Band-Aids and things like that, ice packs. The curriculum staff development is the account that gets drawn down throughout the year for professional development for staff. It's just about the same of where it was, or would have been in December. Utilities are pretty much flat. She'll true that up, Donna will true that up as the bills come in, but it'll basically be zero. Operations and maintenance went down about $7,000, and that is, we paid our Power School bill, which is our student operating system. That's what we store grades on. It has all our student information in it. That bill was paid, and so was our school messenger system, which is what we use to notify families, staff in emergencies, and our digital backpack. And then if you look at program 10, it is basically flat at this point in time. It has no movement because most of the benefits now are settled. It does not show the benefits for the new person established yet. It's not taken out. We'll see what happens if we are able to find a math candidate. And then that money, honestly, is what's going to actually potentially save us from the large special ed bill that we will be facing. So Don and I are met today, and we will be meeting again with the special ed director and looking to see if we need to freeze the budget to see if we can cover the deficit in special ed because of the outplacements.
On the operation maintenance, there's $23,000 left. Is that enough to handle our operations?
If we don't have an emergency. In that operations and maintenance, you're looking at bills like when you do the fire alarm testing, it's things like that as well. So that's also in that operations and maintenance account is also things like supplies for bathrooms and cleaning materials. So
if we need additional money, we have to go to Board of Finance.
Correct. I think operations and maintenance is pretty standard where they're at this point of the year. The one program that I do look at and we keep a very close eye on is the special ed, because the cost is it goes up and down. And it's hard to predict.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move forward on our agenda under new business. Approval of minutes, workshops, calendars, committee assignments, and so forth. These are action items, so we'll take up each one individually. The first one, which is A, approval of the minutes of November 12th, 2019. I'll entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November the 12th.
I second it.
Okay, so moving second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, next item, approval of minutes of December 10th.
No understand.
I move to approve the December 10th, 2019 minutes.
Okay, we have a motion.
I second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded.
Second.
Any comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approval of Board of Ed 13-month regular meeting calendar.
So, Board Policy 9321 requires the board to file a 13-month calendar with the town clerk's office by January 31st. The same policy states that no meeting shall be held sooner than 30 days after such filing. And that is for FOI. The date for the February meeting that is on this is February 11th. It's usually the second Tuesday of the month, but it is under that 30 days. So the board can schedule a special meeting on February 11th if you want to have it on your typical day. Cross it off your list of regular meetings. You would just skip the regular meeting in February and you would meet FOI requirements. I'd look to see if we could basically not adhere to that policy, and the answer was no, because it's a statute for FOI. So if you want to make February 11th a special meeting, your other option is to move that February meeting.
I am really apologizing. I totally missed it. I did not understand what you meant. Why do we have to skip the February 11th?
So we have to, FOI requires that you, when you adopt your 13-month calendar, that from the moment you turn that into the town clerk's office, you cannot have a regularly scheduled meeting for 30 days.
Okay, I got this.
But you can have a special meeting.
So, on the special meeting, would we be allowed to do what we would have done anyway, or does it impact what we're allowed to cover?
No, it would be your typical business. What you wouldn't be able to do is add items to the agenda that evening. You could only address the items that are on that agenda.
I think we should keep the meeting now.
Yeah, I move that we have do you need a motion for that, or
No, you.
just decide maybe have a special meeting that night?
If you, I think your motion would be, if you're looking to adopt this calendar without the February 11th meeting, you're basically just saying, we're going to have a special meeting February 11th.
And I have another question. April 14th is during the school vacation. Was anybody already planning on being out of town for then, so that it might not make sense to have the meeting that day?
We have typically moved it also to allow the public to attend the meeting, so even if we didn't have a conflict, we have sometimes moved it.
Would it make sense to move it to the 21st, so it would be the next Tuesday night instead of the 18th during the school vacation? Or, I don't know, so I'm throwing this out as.
I think that would work if,
I don't know,
21st?
is a good idea. It's, as long as it is Tuesday, it's still Tuesday.
So you want to move that forward to the 21st?
Do we know if that's in conflict with any other budget item? I think the budget would be.
So chances are there's planning and zoning that evening, so it may mean your location will have to be different. And I'd have to, if you want to consult the calendar.
Yeah, there's.
I don't have the draft calendar with me. Tracy, I think you're talking about there's budget referendum and a town
meetings. I just want to make sure when I can look at that. I have it in my
This calendar doesn't say anything.
Marissa's as well, the board secretary for Board of Finance, so she may have the draft calendar just to see if that was one of those special dates on the 21st.
4/21 is the annual town meeting.
So there's a town meeting.
All right, so then we'll just leave it.
Good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the land uses calendar, so it really just has their meeting dates on it down here, so.
Yeah.
So then the only change is taking February 11th off this calendar as a standard meeting and labeling it a special meeting.
As long as you want all of it.
Okay, everyone in agreement?
Yes, yes.
Do we have a motion to?
The motion about making February 11th special meeting? No.
No.
To make it.
I make a motion that we adopt the 2020-2021 Willington Board of Education calendar.
I second that.
Okay.
Do we have to?
Do we have to
But do we
specify
have to
this,
specify that that gets removed?
that's a special meeting, or how?
I would just remove the February regular meeting.
Should that be part of the motion? Okay, removing, adding to the end of that,
You would have
removing.
deleted on the,
Yeah, I'll take it off this.
Everyone ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So voted. Okay. The budget workshop calendar.
So I went through all of the other town meeting calendars and tried to work around other meetings. Because it's budget season, I am often required to be at many of these meetings, including Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance and CIP. The dates that I proposed on the draft would allow me to represent the board at those meetings. So I proposed 4 dates to you: Thursday, January 23rd, Tuesday, January 28th, Tuesday, February 4th, and then if you need it, Monday, February 10th, you could hold it. But when I literally printed a calendar out and started labeling BOE, Board of Finance, CIP, and there's not a lot of open dates where you wouldn't be conflicting with something, or I have to present to one of those groups.
Do we have a timeline for a date for when you would present to the Board of Finance? Are we working backwards from the date?
I believe I am presenting to the, or the board is presenting to the Board of Finance on February 27th. So you could potentially adopt your budget on February 11th at your regular meeting, which is now a special meeting. If you need, as long as you have the presentation, that's the scheduled date. February 27th is when the board presentation is done to the Board of Finance.
So these dates replace the 15th and the 22nd that I have on my calendar?
There were 3 dates, yes, that, yeah. But you really should approve these because these then get called as special meeting budget workshops.
Like personally, I can say that Monday, February 10th, I won't be able to be here by 6, but I will be able to be by 6:30 or 7. Maybe, does the time work for everybody? Maybe somebody else has conflict with it?
I'll be out of town particularly. But
Yeah, so 2 already have trouble with that, maybe we can
It's the
reschedule
only
it.
possible one, it's only if we needed it, right?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
What date was that on?
It's February 10th. Mondays like totally don't work for me.
The draft on here also says town office building. We have not checked space yet
Okay.
because I wanted to have you approve to make sure you could do the dates.
Okay.
But if you pick the dates, we'll pick the location. If we have to go to a different location, we will.
Okay.
But we'll notify you of that, obviously.
The 23rd, everyone is comfortable with the 23rd of January?
I won't be able to make that because I scheduled my class, and I picked a Thursday because I didn't think we were going to have any meetings on a Thursday, and that's my first class. So if it's going to be videotaped, I will just have to watch it online, not be a part of the discussion.
Is it possible for us to have discussion on topics other than those programs even on the other night, so that Tracy, if she has questions or concerns, can bring them up at a future date?
I think the board had voiced that you wanted the opportunity to add discussion. It wasn't just going to be me presenting the programs, and that you wanted to add that to the agenda. That's up to you. If you want me to put on the agenda or discussion, and it could be other programs that have already been reviewed or discussion on the programs that have been reviewed, that's up to you.
Did we decide at the end of last year that we were going to change our approach a little bit? Did we vote on every program last year? What was the change we were considering for this year?
You did not vote program by program.
We did
That
not.
was from the year before.
Okay.
That's what you did not like.
Yeah, I think
That's
we
why
went
we
through
changed
all
it
the
last
programs.
year.
Okay, so
And
will we
then-
be voting each?
It's up to you.
program, or will we
Well, at the end, we'll discuss programs and
vote in the end for
Last
the
meeting.
entire budget?
we'll decide what the budget will be.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll ask questions as we go along. And I think last year we changed items as we went along modestly. We didn't do anything drastic.
We tried to come to consensus around
Around
issues if we
certain
had a
things,
sense at the time.
Yeah.
But then we also kept open for conversation, things that we'd already covered at past meetings, so that if Tracy missed the first one, she'd still be able to engage in conversation and ask questions
Yeah.
if she were able to make the second too. It's easier to miss the first one than to miss the last one.
So do you want discussion and public comment available, this board discussion and public comment at all of your budget workshops?
Yes, I think we should. Otherwise it has no sense to keep the opinion.
I think so. I mean, they have a,
As long as we keep public comment to half an hour the way we've done it before.
Also, you mean public, so public would come and hear.
Present.
Yes,
We-
yes.
We've done present to
Yes,
speak,
yes.
but we limit, remember I had the timer going,
Yeah.
and we were
Yeah.
trying to keep people, because we had a big crowd, and we wanted to make sure we could, finish before.
Townspeople have a stake in the budget.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that they know what's in there and where the money's going.
So I'm a little uncomfortable with the Monday, February 10th, if two of you can't make it, because if there's lots going on, and we have, and sometimes too, when I've done budgeting processes in the past, you're working your way through, and you come to something, and then you realize that there may be a conflict or an offset, or, isn't that already covered in, a different section? And with the back and forth, to have that last date where it's kind of a wrap up if we need it, and that knowing that two of you won't be able to be there, I would almost like that last day moved, so that at least as of this moment, we think everybody can be there.
Yeah, I want to see the 10th movie also.
Are there any dates that there are not either CIP or budget dates?
Do you have the Board of Finance calendar for budget presentations? I know February 6th is the Board of Finance.
They're every Thursday.
I know, but if
beginning
we're not
1st
part of that one,
No,
then
We could do
maybe
the
it's,
5th.
you're not till the last Thursday in February is the Board of Education.
so I wouldn't anticipate that I would need to be at that meeting. So the other thing I would throw out is February 6th. That would mean you would have February 4th, and you'd come back that Thursday on February 6th.
Except for Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Could we
Tracy.
do the 5th, Wednesday the 5th?
It's a CIP night. I just don't know if I'll be invited back.
Tracy, can you make the 6th?
No.
Not until, my class goes till from 5 to 7:45. I can possibly ask for a later class, but I don't want to ask for the first class to miss, so maybe I could talk to the professor once I get to know her about leaving class early for that meeting.
Well, let's see what other dates
Can
we
you
can
make 7
find.
o'clock?
Could we move our February 11th date further out to allow us to have our budget conversation on the 11th, and then, for example, our regular meeting on the 18th? Is that possible?
Oh, we just checked that for the 18th.
That's
Maybe it's special.
Yeah, so because we could move it from the week before and just stretch it out a week, because you said that you're not going till the 27th, so that's still,
The 18th is the Board of Selectmen's meeting.
we always need a cushion, it's not right up against it.
That's a selectmen's meeting.
And it's also school vacation.
Don't you think so?
Monday's a holiday.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yes, typically we have, but we like 3 here, so.
So I can probably talk to the professor if we want to go with that February.
Is it a problem for us to do it when it's a selectmen's meeting?
Not unless there was something you had on the agenda of the selectmen's meeting, you wanted someone from the Board of Education present.
You might not need February 6th.
That's what I mean, it's like a backup.
No.
Would it be possible to, even if we kind of, the 11th could either be a budget or a board meeting? And then
It's a special meeting, so you're gonna
So it's gonna be a special meeting, we have to
Organize
put
it,
the
sure.
agenda a couple days ahead of time, so we could know how well it was going. We could decide at the end of the day on the 4th if the 11th will be a regular meeting or a budget workshop.
Yes, why won't we just add whatever we need to discuss on February 10th? If we will need, we'll add it to 11th.
You need to approve it, though. It's not a workshop. You need to approve your budget.
Vote.
You need to vote.
We could do that vote on the night of the 18th when the selectmen's meeting is, if we need to.
Sure. I think whatever you do, you need to make sure that the public knows what those dates are so that they can go. So if you're saying the 11th and 18th.
Oh, I see what you're saying, it makes sense for us to put a whole
So if we
calendar out.
so if we did
Correct.
everything on the 11th, this, whatever would be our normal meeting, and throw in the vote,
I
that
think
would,
that's what happened last year. It's the wrap up. I mean, I think decisions were already made walking into the regular meeting, and it was just a matter of the board voting.
so that'll eliminate the conflict with school being out on the 17th and 18th. It'll eliminate the conflict with the 10th, with Ann and Elena not being able to show up. And it doesn't put another burden on Tracy for Thursday.
It just means we don't have an extra time to discuss it.
You gotta do it in 3.
Maybe we'll meet on that day, instead of 7, we can meet at 6 and have an extra hour to discuss if we have any issues with the budget.
You mean on the 11th?
On the 11th. So instead of 7, we'll meet at 6. If we'll need it, we'll see.
We can decide it
Yes.
when we know how it's going. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like though that we want to put a calendar out with all of the dates. That's what we did last year, in the same way the Board of Finance puts out a calendar to have a list of what's there so that people.
So can we call it, let me ask, can we call it 2 separate meetings? We could have a 6 o'clock meeting on the 11th, which could be canceled if we don't need the extra discussion. And then the regular special meeting on the 11th starting at 7? Would that solve the problem and make it 2 separate things?
And then if we don't need that 6 o'clock meeting, we could just have our regular scheduled meeting at 7.
That might be our best.
Is that,
Because it says final date if additional discussion is needed. So it could be listed that way.
does that comply with rules and regulations?
I think it's the best.
I appreciate everyone trying to accommodate on the schedule.
Anyway.
We do.
Well,
I was saying that for all of us.
So then you would have Thursday, January 23rd, Tuesday, January 28th, Tuesday, February 4th, and your additional, just in case, would be Monday, February 11th. Is the 6 p.m.?
No, Tuesday,
Tuesday.
February 11th.
Didn't change it on me. Thank you. Tuesday, February 11th. Are you wanting that 6 o'clock time? Is that what you're
Yes.
Yep.
going for?
But that we would list them as 2 separate meetings, the 6
Right,
p.m. and the
that
7
one I
p.m.
got, yep. So you just need the motion and approval.
Yeah. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the budget workshop calendar as amended.
Yeah, I second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We're down to,
Herb, were you the one who made that motion?
yes.
Oh,
I can do that, can I?
Depends on what you
Once
consider good form.
Once in a while. Okay. Okay, we have the Willington Public School calendar, 2020 to 2021. This calendar has been on our agenda for a number of times and is not ready for a vote. Has Oregon had an opportunity to look at it?
For new folks, do you want a quick recap?
Yeah, because there were changes.
Do you want me to give you a quick recap?
Yeah, sure.
So this calendar we align with Mansfield, Ashford, and Region 19 teacher contracts, staff contracts are slightly different, but for the most part, our calendar aligns exactly with their vacations and their days. We have 182 student days, not all places do, and our teacher contractual days is 188 days, so that's what you see on here. School would start on this for students would be September 3rd, and it's late because Labor Day is late this year. The reason, we talked about the potential to do that, make that start date earlier, but we are matching E.O. Smith, and E.O. Smith is doing a roof. And so they need as much time for their summer as they can get, and so this calendar basically provides the consistency amongst the groups that make those decisions together.
Okay, I think you know my position on this. November 11th is not on the calendar, but after consideration, I'm not going to oppose the calendar that's in front of you, in that E.O. Smith, I guess Asher too,
Yeah.
because I checked and they have dropped November 11th, which is Veterans Day. I felt very strongly it should be on the calendar, but I'm not going to oppose the motion, whatever it is.
I actually had a lot of different people I heard that are veterans that expressed frustration because school was held that day. And I understand that the schools do some special programs to explain Veterans Day and to honor the veterans. But I also want to be respectful to how the veterans themselves feel. I'm not a veteran, so I can't speak to how they feel. I can only say what I've been.
Any other comments?
Well, I agree with Donna about the Veterans Day. I heard some people too that they were upset, not just with our town, actually people out of town, I heard. They were upset that the schools are dropping the celebration of the Veterans Day by going to school that day. So how about if we'll try to maybe vote for it to see how we feel? But I would like to make a motion to put November 11th as a Veterans Day off on the calendar.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I second.
And it's moved and seconded.
Let's discuss
Any
it.
further discussion?
Did we have a sense of what the other schools were going to do? What did you just say about the other schools, Ashburn and
They have dropped it.
Ashburn and Mansfield?
I don't know what has, but I think probably they did too.
What about the high
And
school?
Region 19 dropped it.
I know we had the wonderful celebration for the veterans here, and I volunteer in Mansfield, and there was this big bulletin board with everybody's grandfathers that were veterans, and they had come in, and, you know, so I feel we're really almost teaching the children more by bringing it into the school, so that, and then allowing them to invite any family members, friends. And you do wonderful music, because I hear my grandchildren singing it at home, so the patriotic songs. So that's my opinion.
And I'm not a veteran, and so I'm just going by what those that are have said in my presence, and that's why I say.
But can we do it on Friday, the day before the Veterans Day, the same celebration, and make a lot of emphasis, and make maybe special events, maybe invite veterans the day before the Veterans Day? What do you think?
I think we all agree that a celebration, no matter what day it happens on, is a good idea. I think the question is, does it make sense for us to stay in alignment with the other schools? So for example, if you had a child both at EO and at Hall, you have one child home and one child at school. So the question is also about alignment as well as.
There is also another question about it. Then if we will, in this particular calendar this year, if we'll put November 11th as a day off, then the school will end up even one day later. And if we have a snow days, then it can bring complications. So it's going to be, then if without even snow days, the school will end on June 18th. So maybe we can,
The last day you could have school is with 8 snow days. If you have 10 snow days, your last day is still June 30th.
Can we have a half-day school on that day?
Which day?
Just the November 11th day, Veterans Day. That way it will be celebration and half-day and we don't skip the school. What do you think?
I think that would be a nightmare
Why?
for
I don't
buses,
understand.
because now they have to, if you have children that either go to aftercare, or you work to get them off the bus, now
Or your
you
high school student watches your younger kid.
and that way, so
Yeah.
that's, I wouldn't feel comfortable with the half day, and I just want to be respectful to those that serve.
You have opposing views to what the folks that have come into the schools that have been part of the celebrations. I have not heard that, and I wish I had heard that. You've been there. I will tell you that we had veterans at Center School. Center School was the first year they did the program at Center School, because we had the day off, or we had school that day, you were required to do a program. And we had veterans in attendance that said it was the best Veterans Day experience that they had, because they saw, the kids got to introduce their veteran, whoever they had, and talked about it. It was probably more powerful. You could do that again, Elena, to your point, any day. But they are pretty amazing programs, and the veterans that were there said that. I don't know who that.
At homeschool, it was just it's a very moving presentation, whether it's on the day or the before, but I feel like it had more meaning to be doing it on the day. And it's because I work with students every single day, and when I ask them what they're doing on their days off, unless they are related to a veteran, they are most likely not spending Veterans Day honoring veterans. They are sitting, watching television on a screen, a little screen or a big screen, or sleeping. They're not doing something as they are on a day when they're in school, in their classrooms, having conversations about veterans as well as a whole school community event.
So do you want me to withdraw my motion? I just thought it was good to discuss, so,
You want to withdraw your motion?
yeah.
Do we have any veterans that are teachers?
I don't know that.
I
I
just,
believe so, yes, we do.
I would, just if they felt that they needed that day off, I would not want them to feel like they had to show up.
I never had anyone approach me about it. I
Okay,
think
if
they
it's not
would.
an issue, then it's not an issue.
Yeah.
So then, I'm just gonna withdraw my motion?
Who seconded that?
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, we need a
We
new
took
motion to
which
accept the calendar as, we need a new motion to accept the calendar as presented. Okay, I move to accept the 2020-2021 public school calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, let's move to second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, moving on. Motivated committees. And we have quite a few committees, really, and I hope some of you have looked them over. We have the Finance Committee, Curriculum Committee, Policy, Facilities Committee. The first three are fairly active. Facilities can get active, I guess.
Yeah, it's everybody on the board is really part of that.
And then we have ad hoc committees, wellness, negotiations, clubs, security, and so forth. What we probably could do at some point is to give every member of the board a list of the committees and have you select the ones that you're interested in. And then the chair will determine who will be on each one of the committees. And you probably should put them in the order in which you are most interested. Put the first one first. Second, most interesting one, second. And I'll look them over and get back to you at some point. We don't have forms for that, I don't think, do we?
No, we
Yeah.
can create them.
I was gonna say, I could create those for you. Are these the?
For each one, each board member?
Could we
Yeah.
also have a copy of the committees that people served on before, for maybe continuity? Like I've been on policy for several years.
I have a copy of that.
Yeah, so maybe, if people wanted to continue on a certain one, or,
It's worth noting that we can't have more than 3 people on a committee, is that correct?
That's right.
Because otherwise it turns into a meeting and not a committee. So it means that each of us will serve on 1 or at most 2 committees, except the ad hoc committees may be appointed
Yeah.
as needed.
Yeah.
You're,
I think we had 2 members on the committee, right? Possibly 3.
The
Plus-
policy at 3, 3 is better in case one
Plus you
person
could have
sick.
an alternate too. Or I could put myself on as an ex officio member. But we could have 3 members, not 4.
We could do 3 members with you as ex officio if needed as the alternate, do you? Or do you mean 2 plus you?
or 2 plus a month.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you were proposing, sorry.
Yeah, 2 plus me. I don't know if we'll go that route
Where are the descriptions?
we have, we'll send them out. Your policy says that they're elected her by the board, so do you want to take them and try and organize them and then have people vote?
yet. Yeah, well, that's okay.
We can do it right now, like simplify, take a piece of paper, write the name and then number of interest.
I think people might want to know how often they meet and how much reading, like the policy committee is a lot of work going into it, more so than the finance meetings are more urgent and are called more frequently. So I think people might have questions.
Yeah, some of the new members.
Your
Liz might
understanding.
want, heads up on what the committees are and what they do and how often they meet, things of that nature. Yeah. But when we do come up with a list, if you're unsatisfied, with the placement on there, just let me know, switch it around. If it's possible. Okay, any other comments on that?
When are we gonna get the list of information, and then when do you need, our volunteering by?
I mean, it depends on if you're gonna vote on them. If you're gonna vote on them at a meeting, which is what your policy says, then you'd have to vote at your next meeting.
Okay, so it's only.
So, I mean, we can get these out
Like a
pretty
week
quick.
before the
Yeah, I can
next
get these
meeting.
out pretty quick. I already have them
Okay.
in a grid.
I just have a question about number 5 committee, 5, ADHOC, Wellness Negotiations Club Security. Like, is there a way, where can we find the explanation what's expected from that committee? Because I never
That's what I'll
saw
put on them. I'll put what the responsibility is, how often they generally meet.
And
I'll
you'll
give you all-
email it to us?
Yeah.
Now, whereabouts does it say that the board will vote on this? Is it one of our policies?
Yes.
Because normally the chairman makes the selection.
U.S. Smith does it that way. Your 9130A says committees of the Board of Education shall be established at the first regularly scheduled meeting in December or as needed by a majority vote of the board.
Okay. Okay, we have another item under new business, the review of a capital improvement project, the CIP. And I think everyone has a copy of the CIP. Yes.
Is it both of these?
It's both of those things. So, I added more detail to what you got last time. It was just an easier way to look at it. This is basically the grid of all of the projects that the board you can consider more, but this is what I've identified. The grid gives you this is the way the board, the CIP group looks at it, is on a 5-year plan. And so I tried to place items projects on those 5 years and balance them out, and they're balanced by need. The explanation, I'm going to go through this paper, the explanation is in the document. If you look at the big paper, any items in the left column that are in green are new. Those are newer items, okay? Any item that says grant reimbursement, that means that you can apply to the state, and if it's approved to the state, you get grant reimbursement back. There are certain things you have to do that. And then my team has basically identified the priority level, and it's basically low, medium, or high. We have to identify when we turn in our paperwork to the CIP committee, it's you know, there's a need level that we have to identify. So that's the gist of what you're looking at here. I added a column because I thought it was important for the board to consider, and that is the last column that I just wrote, need eliminated. This need would be eliminated if you had a new school, because you have to consider those as you start spending funds. This is not board money. This is money that would be approved by the capital improvement committee and then goes to the selectmen. And if it's passed, whatever's passed at budget, when you're ready to spend that money, you have to go to Board of Finance. You still have to go to a town meeting to do other projects, okay? So that's a quick background. So now I'm going to go to this packet right here and walk you through what's in there. Sorry about all the highlighting, but it was the easiest way with a key to explain what was what. So the yellow, anything in yellow are all the projects. The pink is what was identified as a priority to put forward in year one. Year one, if approved, is the only group of projects that will happen. If something is in year two, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's still out there, okay? It would have to be moved up and voted upon the next year and priorities change. And then items in green are the new items. So this is sorted out by center school. I left in any item that is crossed off is something that's active. So if you look at remainder of lower wing heating project, that has already been approved, and those are things that would be in process, okay? Same thing with number 2, new roof, lower, middle, and gym roof. We'll get to that today. So item 3 is what I'm on, and if you look at item 3, it is the center school fire panel. We generally put a quote or an estimate on these with a life expectancy if we know it, and the current age. The current age of the center school fire panel we believe to be 21 years old. The life expectancy is 20 years. And then this is just a simple explanation. This does not mean it's broken. All it means is if this fails and we cannot get a part for it, that's what you're going to pay to fix it. You don't have $30,000 additional in your maintenance budget to pay for a fire panel, right? So when we start getting these systems, you know, some of these electronic systems, it's hard to get parts for them. And you're going to hear that about a couple of the items that are on here. So that's item 3.
So is my understanding correct that the center school fire panel is a medium priority for year 2? So we're only dealing with year 1?
The items that you want to put in year 1, and this, you can adjust this, the items that you put and agree to put in year 1 is what they will discuss. Last year, I don't know if this has ever happened, but last year the CIP committee said whole school's roof is bad. You need to put it in the board had put it in year 2, and they said we need to do it, and they put it in year 1, and it was approved. So generally, whatever your recommendation is, that in year 1 is your priorities, is they're going to consider those projects first. It doesn't mean they're going to approve them all. It just means that you have identified as a board those as your priority projects. Okay? But yes, you're correct. I put it in year 2, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but if you would scroll down almost to the bottom where it says $54,500, Hall School's panel is there as well. I thought if you put those in the same year, you might find some savings if some company comes in and bids to put in 2 as opposed to 1. Questions about the fire panel? I'm going to keep moving. Item 4, upper wing heating project at center school. This would result in steam valve upgrades and controls for all of the heat that's at center school. The lower wing and all of the units that operate on hot water are already in our plan. The upper wing is steam, those are not in our plan yet, and that right now is listed in an out year. And when I say an out year, it would be year 3. Questions about that? Okay, the window replacement in the upper wing, those are all single pane original windows. They're about 66 years old, and interestingly enough, this portion is, a portion of this cost is reimbursable, but it's only the labor costs. It's just what the state does, how they do it. The actual material is not, so it's labor costs only, and our reimbursement rate is has been 64%. So you see, when you follow that across, you would see that the window replacement quote doesn't match my number there. Has come down, I think, but you would see the grant reimbursement would be about $13,000.
So a question to you, I'm sorry, late, so
It's okay.
I need time. So those numbers which you are naming, they are literally these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you just move in order.
Center school is in order, Hall school is not. I just numbered them on here so you could see all the projects.
Ah, okay, but they are
all
all
the
in here,
projects
everything
are on
there,
here,
so we can
correct.
put numbers accordingly. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. Number 6 is something that's in process right now. It's the fiber optic. Number 7 is the gym AC. So if you look at that on your sheet, it comes across as it comes across as year 3. Okay, and that's the room that has all the assemblies in it. There's no AC in there currently. That is the system when they put the new heating unit in that room. They prepped it, the unit that's in there, to add AC to it if you so choose. Okay, so that would be down.
That's item D.
That is item 7.
So there's no windows there, there's a door? Are there windows in there?
In the gym,
Yeah.
they're up high,
Tiny little
so
things.
you can't open.
There's no circulation.
You need a lift to get in there or a ladder to open the windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. The air handler does circulate the air, but it's once it's hot in there, it's hot in there. Item 8 is air condition the upper wing. Again, this is something that the lower wing, it has air conditioning in the library and in the hallways. It takes the edge off when we have a real hot group of days in a row. The upper wing does not have that. I would suggest, if you look at this, that air conditioning upper wing, I don't know that I would do that without doing the windows. So that's why you see them in the same year, because if you have single pane windows and you put an AC, you're going to be burning it up. So if it's a project you would want to consider in the future, I would suggest you consider those in the same year. I left project number 9 in CES pave upper parking lot. I've heard things about this. It's on this paper. It's in year 5. I've heard that we can and cannot pave this. I left it on. It's in year 5, and some people say when it's in year 5 it goes to die. I left it on there. You know, if at some point in time you want to see what you can do about that parking lot, then you know, have at it. But I left it in year 5 for you. Item 10, you see that it is in pink, so it is a 2020 priority. We've learned a lot about the asphalt this year in our parking lots. The lower parking lot was replaced a number of years ago. There are some significant big cracks that have formed across them, and we've been told fix them now or they're going to get worse, and if you don't seal your parking lot, it's going to deteriorate. You can extend the life of your parking lot, and we've been talking with Public Works about some different options. They've had some professionals come in. This is one of the it's not even chip seal, it's like a sealer to rejuvenate the oils. I don't know what you need to know about this.
So that's the parking lot up here.
The parking lot at Center School, it's the main parking lot. It would be basically sealed and then you'd have to reline it. It'd be about $600, but that would be built into that price. So that was listed as one of the priorities this year. And it's really about maintaining the parking lot for long term. Item 11, the playground rubberized surface. Instead of paying for wood chips and having to maintain a certain depth of wood chips every single year, you could put rubber mulch down or with a poured rubber. It's expensive. It's $90,000. It's in year 5. It's not a priority, but it's on there just so you know it's something that you want to consider in the future. If you were ever going to tear out the playground at Center School and put in a new playground, that might be the time to look at doing that. But at this time, there's no intention of doing that.
What's on there now?
It's all wood chips. So
They're not using shredded rubber at all?
No, it's expensive.
So, and what's the rubber price comparing with wood chips in how many years we could use? Obviously, wood chips once a year, and do you have information about rubber?
About what?
Chips, about this as a
The
option?
cost.
Yeah, the cost.
So Public Works has been kind enough, the last time we did wood chips, they dug it all out for us. So we can keep doing wood chips for several years now, we're okay to do that. As long as we maintain a depth of, I think it's 10 inches of fall, a fall risk. If someone falls, you have to have 10 inches and the custodians go out and dig. Once it's frozen, the equipment is closed. So, I mean, I can't tell you, I don't know the number we've spent on wood chips in the past.
But that's okay, and then how long that rubber material will last? For how many years? Do you have
A
any?
long time.
So they do not say like 50 years, so
No.
they do not give you the number?
Not on this one, no.
No, okay.
But it lasts, it's just like a bottle disintegrating and it's just gonna be there forever. The standby generator is number 12. This is something that Stu Cobb is kind of pushed for as it's a safety measure for Center School. It's in year 5, it's listed as $40,000. It's not, the building is not a, what's the word I'm looking for, emergency shelter. So if we had an issue, we would close. Where the standby generator comes into play is if you have an ice storm and you can't get to your building and we lose power, we have a portable generator that they wheel outside and they have to keep it gassed. So if nobody can get there, whatever happens to your building happens to your building. You hope Public Works can get in there if our custodians can't. But it's out in year 5 just as a no. Hall School does have a standby generator. You don't even know if you lose power. I've been in assemblies where they've lost power and no one has any idea. It just kicks on and goes. So, all right. Items 13 and 14 are new. The exhaust fans that are throughout the building, they ventilate the building and they replace the stale air with clean, fresh air. MCOR identified those when they did their survey a couple of years back. The life expectancies of these is 15 to 20 years. These are currently 40 years old. We did one already, but there's 13 more. Doesn't seem like a lot of money, but if they break, again, a $5,000 bill for an exhaust, to replace an exhaust fan when it's not budgeted for is a lot of money, and that would replace a bunch of exhaust fans.
How many exhaust fans is this for?
I believe this is actually 13. The last item that's on the list here is in year 3, is a CES clock system in PA. It's been there for a long, long time. This is one of those additional things that is impossible to get parts for when our clocks break. They are put on a battery clock, and the problem is when Mrs. Castle has music and is tapping her watch going, "Where are the kids?" and the clock is off some, it just doesn't help. So that's a part of it. The other thing is the safety portion of the PA. Just, you can call a lockdown, you can call, I can call from my office now over the PA at either of the schools, but they need to work and they need to work well. So some of them are digital now. It's something long-term that I think you need to consider. It's out in year 3 because I think it's more important than the other items in year 4 and 5. So I've kind of moved the items and if you look at center school where I believe they would fall in the grand scheme of things, but also across the school.
On item 14,
Yes.
almost no one uses wall clocks anymore, so I don't really care about the wall clock portion of it. I am concerned about the safety portion of it. Are they one thing? Are they linked?
You mean these, are they linked?
My concern is something happens and you have to call for a lockdown. I don't want the teachers to find out 10 minutes too late. But I don't understand the system well enough to know if it could be, eliminate the clocks on the walls or whatever, or use battery operated ones without a clue of what time it is. But as far as making sure the kids are safe.
Yeah, there's a system in place right now, but again, that PA, anytime we have someone come in, it's the same system, the clock and PA system is the same system. When they come in, they're like, listen, if this fails, you don't have a system. Do we still have things in place other than that? Sure. I don't like to say what they are because they're security related.
I get that, I just don't want the kids to be at risk.
Yes.
And we do use clocks in school still. We're not well off the rest of the world, we're no kids, and we use clocks every minute of every day. That's how we keep track of when bad classes pass.
So how many clocks are we going to get from the 24,000?
It would replace all the clocks in
All
school.
of them?
Yeah, at center school.
I also feel this is a priority. I would love to see this get moved up to ASAP. I think for the safety, and also I agree with Tracy, when the kids have to go to specials, they have to go to lunch, they're constantly moving and going different places, so the clocks are important. And it's hard when you're in the room and you look at the clock and it's like an hour off or...
So let me get through all the programs and you can
Okay.
figure out if you want to move items up and where. Does that make sense? Hall school priorities, number 1, the roof is on there, it's a work in progress, we'll talk about that in a minute. Number 2 is the heating unit replacement. This is the same box heating units that were approved for center school. They are exactly the same unit. They've replaced one as a result of our flood we had 2 years ago. One got replaced. There's, I can't tell you the number. Sorry, they're out of order on your spreadsheet, but I don't know the exact number. I think it's 8. They put it on here. Yes, there's 8 unit ventilators that would be replaced, and it's that box that you're looking at right there. The reason why I put it in year 1 is because center schools is already approved. I thought if you put it in year 1, well, again, you would put out a bid for the full number, and you could do them July 1 and do all of them, center school and hall school. Does that make sense? You don't see center schools on there because they're already approved.
Oh, okay.
Hall schools have not been approved. I think when you bid in a bigger package, you're more likely to get a deal, as opposed to, we're going to put 2 in. That's the reason why it was bumped up, and we want our heat to work. If you're going to put a new boiler in the hall school, which is what we're doing, it makes sense to have a heating unit that currently, it says current age 36, and the life expectancy of those is 20. Moving along, number 3 in hall schools, security cameras is a work in progress. Item 4, and already approved, I should say. Item 4 is the boiler replacement. The $60,000 is per boiler, and we just had 1 boiler approved. I would say that, let's see if that 1 boiler has been approved and goes in. Let's see if we can keep it going and balance out the school. because we believe it can cover what we need to cover, and the parts from the one that's coming out, if they're still good, could be used on the older boiler. But eventually, you may want to consider replacing it, which is why it's out in year 3. Okay? Item 5 is the air conditioning for the band room. The band room is on ground level. It's at the back of the school and has full windows. It's where we had the break in the summer. And so we don't really want those windows open. And when it's hot and those windows are open, that room is accessible. And so I'd like to be able to keep those windows closed, put AC in that room. You're protecting our investment in our instruments, but you're also protecting the building because it's back to school and you wouldn't have to open the windows. So it's in year 2. It is also a security recommendation. I believe that also came out of the security team, if I remember correctly, Michelle.
That's correct.
All right, so that's going here. Item 6 is the HMS sidewalk replacement. There's a sidewalk and landing replacement, and there's a sidewalk replacement. This one is the one that's closer to the top. It's $21,000. It's in year 2. I'm going to be honest with you. The picture on the left, we walked it. You can barely see that there's a sidewalk there. It's an old asphalt sidewalk. It's an exit to the school. If somebody gets hurt, it's not good for us. The other picture that you see there is the front entrance. That 2-inch crack, that is actually a connected slab. Even though you see the cuts in the pavement, we had somebody come out and he said the pitch of this slab we couldn't re-pour it. You couldn't cut that out because it would just keep doing the same thing because of the pressure of the slab. And so this would replace that. So you're looking at $21,000 for a significant sidewalk replacement at Hall School in year 2. Item 7, HMS paved parking lot. I crossed out parking lot chip seal because we now have had 2 contractors come out and say they wouldn't do it. You would get 3 years out of it and then it would need it again. There are so many cracks in the Hall School parking lot. They said it's just not worth the amount of money you're going to spend the $20,000 and get 3 years out of it. So I crossed off parking lot chip seal and made it HMS paved parking lot. This should be highlighted green because it's new. The number that has been thrown at us is $100,000. That is the parking lot across the street from Hall School, as well as the back parking lot. It's a lot of space.
So this is both the one across the street,
Correct.
the one behind. Does it deal with the driveway at all?
Yes, the whole thing. Yes, everything. And talking to Public Works, he would love to, it's not approved, but if that happens, he would also love to do something with the road that goes behind that parking lot, because that's in dire need and they're connected. So, yeah, I don't know how to explain this, but if you park across the street from Hall and you take that left turn, where you park, there's a public road that goes along the backside of that parking lot and comes out at the end of the parking lot.
It's not clearly defined, so most people wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's not part of the parking lot, it's a public road, so
There's a road going in,
it's across the street.
across the street.
When you go up and in, it's the top portion in front of the
Jensen's.
homes
Yeah.
that's there
Yeah.
is public road.
Correct.
But it appears as though it's a part of the parking lot.
So that's item 7. That actually, it's got to be torn up, is what they said. Item 8 is locker replacement in Hall School. They've been damaged over the years. It's in year 4. It's a lower priority. It's the boys' room in particular. The girls' locker room is quite nice. We keep an eye on the surplus store at UConn, hoping that lockers will come through. If we could replace them for free from UConn, we will do that. But we leave it in our CIP plan because it's at some point should be taken care of. Item 9. This was I think, approved years ago, and then I don't know if there was a budget freeze, it didn't happen, and it was never done. So the front entrance repair, pillars, trim, all the architectural components at the front steps, the trim goes all the way across the front of the building, and it also does the side entrance where the ramp is, and on the, if you're facing the building, it also goes to the back. You're gonna say, why is this in year one? This is the front of the building, and if you look at those pictures, that's what it looks like. I will tell you that while school is gonna be 100 years old, and there's gonna be a celebration there, it needs to be fixed. It shouldn't look like that, and that painting and would get all that taken care of. Replacing the items that are there is probably pretty important.
Is it safe or
The pillars,
structural?
yes, it's more. There is some rot in the bottom of the boards for where it's the waters come down.
And this will take care of that?
Yes, yes, this is part of it, correct. Item 10 is the sidewalk landing replacement. This is the side entrance to whole school. This is the ramp that is ADA compliant. We've heard two things. We've heard one, that it could be a crumbling foundation, and then we've also heard two, that it's not crumbling foundation. There's potential that the pipes where, if you look at the railing where it hits the concrete, that it was installed wrong years ago, and the water gets down there and freezes, and it's cracked. And so we asked, can you just cut those out and redo them? And he said, no, you can't, because of, if you start messing with it, it's got to be redone, and you don't know how much damage is down in. And if you look at the side of it, you can see the damage that's there. You can't cut it out. So that HMS sidewalk landing is in year 3. At some point should be taken care of.
Is it structurally sound so that if somebody needs to hold on to the rail,
Yes,
the rail's not going
it is.
anywhere?
It is. It's accurate. Item 11 is the gym curtain. It goes up and down. They're afraid to bring it down right now because it will. Last time they brought it down, it got stuck. I still see it as a lower priority. We're not doing 2 classes at a time in there at this point in time. There's 1 class in there. But if you ever want to use the gym for 2 purposes, and you put that curtain down that's in the middle, you might not get it back up. So it's in year 4. It's about $20,000, and it's an older curtain. But I see heat as more of a priority, and other things as more of a priority. Okay, so on to some newer items. Elevator modernization work. That elevator is 40 years. It was done as in the 1980 addition project. The life expectancy I've seen all over the place. We put 25 years in. A modernization basically does a few things for you. It brings it up to current standard. It could be the entire box. It's a hydraulic elevator. This is the quote of the company that does the work for us. So you could, from what I'm told, avoid doing the modernization of the box, which is the car you ride in, and just do the panel, put a new panel in, and electronics, which is still $100,000, I believe. Or you could do the full thing. It's a big project. So it's one of the new things that's on there. It's the elevator is out in year 5 right now. That is one of those items, honestly, that I cross my fingers that every time Steve calls me and says the elevator's down, I get a little nervous because if they can't get parts for it, I worry. And that's serviced on a yearly basis.
And question, how often do you use it in duration? What is it used?
Every day. We have students in wheelchairs to access any of the hallways. Yes. Cafeteria, it's the only way you can get down. Yep.
This is to replace the elevator that's there now, or just to update it?
They call it modernization. I mean, there are certain parts that are not part of the quote. I can show you the exact thing. it's one of those interesting things, I guess, and I mean, Peter, you're an expert on this, but from what I understand is that there are certain parts that are salvaged and last forever, and there are certain parts that do not. And if the look of the elevator box itself is okay for you, but you want to make sure the panel is upgraded and it meets your standard, then you're not going to worry about closing and not opening. You do the modernization.
The kids getting stuck.
Yeah, we don't want that either.
People getting
Or
stuck.
TV.
Now,
They are getting
the
stuff.
No, they're not.
state
What we want to
communication
avoid
and,
that.
Yeah, they
inspect.
annual inspection, yes. We follow the inspection report. Item 13 is HMS boiler room work. I learned something this year about CIP that you can put items that are under $10,000 if they have a longer life expectancy and are mechanical. It's written in the thing, I asked Don about it. There's 2 items that are down there that if we're replacing this boiler, these 2 things make sense. The mixing valve for hot and cold water and the circulator pumps. We've done the circulator pumps at center. All of those things need to happen at Hall. And so that's why it's in year 1, and that's been identified by M4, and those pumps are older. The fire panel I mentioned, center, Halls, it's no different. The fire panel is about the same age. It's a lot more money, obviously, because you have a 60,000 square foot building. It's twice the size. It replaces the panel, all the smoke heads. It's much bigger. So this is a new item that's on. It's on for year 2, again, to match when I would recommend replacing the center school one. Okay. Item 15 is the air handling units at Hall. There are 5 air handling units. I put it out in year 5. It's a low priority, but again, these are things that bring in the fresh air from the outside. They clean it, they force it back through the ductwork for heating and cooling. We replaced one, a big one in the gym. It was way more. It was, I think the cost of it was more than all of these combined. But again, if one of these breaks and you get a bill for $5,000, you don't have $5,000 in your maintenance budget to pay for these things. So trying to get them out there so you understand some of the items in the building that are older and might need to be replaced.
In regards to the air handlers, are you aware of any air quality issues?
None. All of our air testing that was done last time came back, no questions, missing air. Item 16 is HMS painting the library. I put some pictures in there for you. There's water stains and paint peeling all over that. I would not recommend doing this project if you don't do the roof, because you're still going to have leaks. So if you do the roof, you paint the library. It's in year 1, but if you don't do the roof, again, I wouldn't paint.
When you say do not do the roof, meaning brand new roof or patching up will work? What's
I mean, we cross our fingers that the patching would work, but I still wouldn't paint. I still wouldn't paint until we knew all the leaks were stopped. I would wait a period of time. Okay, on to district priorities. We're almost there. Item 1, the new phone system that went in is great. The caller ID that's already in and done. The district and town ADs was taken out because the fire department number 1 put it into his budget. We have ADs, we're working to get some more, but they're out on the soccer field now. They're in better locations in the schools. They're across town. Alex Moore did a great job taking that on. Item 3. What's that?
There's one over here.
Yes, there is one over here. So item 3 is the building committee consultants. If the building committee is formed and they need money in year 1 to hire an engineer or a consultant, it would still go through the Board of Finance, just like this process, but CIP's process says you have to put those things in your plan. And so I put them in. You see that $100,000 is in there. It's reimbursable if you build a building, if you pay that money and you do the work and you do not build a building, it is not reimbursable. Okay? But that would be, you know, basically all of the funding to allow for the necessary consultants. Item 4, sorry, did I misnumber that? Yes. No. Item 4 is land for a new school. It's a new item. It's a priority as well. It's the number that Fryer put in. Is also listed as a medium. It is also reimbursable as long as you build a new school, and the reimbursement amount that you would get back is in that last column, $409,800. So if the building committee is formed, it has members appointed, they find a piece of land and they want to purchase it, they need money to do it. I don't know what the CIP committee is going to do with this. They may say, just leave it out, and if you find land, then you deal with it at that point. But I thought it was important to have in there because it is explicitly stated in the CIP planning document for what should be in our plans, and this is not. And the last thing, it's the same thing is the school. It states that it should be in your capital improvement project. And so that's the last item that's on there. It's out in year 5. It has the cost estimate that came in from Fryer that the board looked at before they sent a new pre-K through 8th grade building to the Board of Selectmen on a new site. And that reimbursement rate is there as well. So those are all of the projects. The one thing I will tell you is I don't want you to think that those are all of the projects. Okay, and I say this each year, but you know, I add things in. You know, that I mentioned the center school, the lower wing having air conditioning. That unit is getting there. It's getting older, and so I potentially, you know, could get that on next year. Window film for security that would shield the light, but also break resistant. That's not it. If we stay in 2 buildings, I'm going to recommend a double vestibule in both buildings, which means you're buzzed into a building twice, which is what you see all over now. When we visited Bolton, you are buzzed in, you're in a lobby that you do not have access to the school, you're talking to someone from school staff through a bulletproof glass, and then if you are buzzed into the next level, you're now in the school. That's a double vestibule. We do not have those.
Yes.
They have a security guard. Often those doors are open. The last thing is, and again, I'm just giving you some examples that are things that are not on here, and some of them are bigger than others. The double vestibule is a huge item, is the ADA accessibility to the upper wing and center school. The only way to get up in the upper hallway, if you stay in 2 buildings, I think it's the right thing to do, and I would recommend the board eventually put that on, but I thought I bring those up knowing that there's potential of a building talks, but the only way for a student in a wheelchair right now to get into the upper hallway at center school is to go outside.
What about the little...
There is no lift.
What happened to it?
The last time they went to replace the lift, it did not meet code, and it was going to be huge money, and so they made programmatic changes to meet ADA, and programmatic changes means everything is accessible for that student on that floor. They never have to go upstairs. So, those are all the projects. You mentioned the priority of potentially moving the clock system in the PA. Are there any other items on there that you want to move, you want to talk about, you have questions about?
So what's the process with all this? Do we have to approve it at some point, vote for it?
Yes.
Obviously not today.
You have to do this today. You have to approve this today. I've already submitted this alone to the Capital Improvement Committee and said, this is a draft, the board has not adopted it yet. But these are the projects that I'm recommending in the years that I'm recommending them. And then what I will do is, depending on where you put it, I have to finish my paperwork for the submission of each of these projects, because if you change a priority level or you change a year, I have to change it on that paperwork. And that will be submitted, and then I will do the same exact thing I just did, I think next Wednesday at the CIP committee.
Now, will the CIP change any of these?
Oh, sure. You could, your priority.
This is your proposal.
Correct.
We'll end up with a few lists.
Correct. I think they've been very fair to the schools, to be honest with you. They've done a good job looking at what the priorities are. And they've listened. I think the pictures tell 1,000 words. And they've done a good job moving projects around and supporting the fixes that we've presented in the last couple of years. And the thing I think they're going to have to look at, and it's probably harder than it's ever been, money's always tight, but I made that last column for a reason. If you build a new school, do you take any of these items off? And we're going to get to this at the roof. The roof is a big one, but I don't know. I'll save that for the roof conversations.
The only other one that, when we were having our discussion that came to mind was air conditioning the band room at the middle school. Especially since our weather's getting hotter, you know, we're having hotter days than we used to. So that was the only one that stood out to me.
It's right below the PA system one.
Over here. It's in
The
year
first one of the
Number
HMS.
5.
And again, that's, I mean, honestly, it's not about the instruments, it's about the security.
And the people, and the kids being warm.
Yeah, it's not even about the kids being warm, to be honest with you. If the kids are warm, they're warm. It's nice to have AC. Not every part, very few parts of the building have AC. But to be able to keep those windows closed for security.
For security.
Does that room still have its unique odor?
No. That's where the flood happened, and it's great because they tore out all the carpet as part of the insurance claim. They did a lot of work on that room. Yes.
The one, I have a couple concerns. One, for the bottom 3 items. If we leave it on here, as you have it, and I'm almost thinking as a little cart before the horse, if the town should have a referendum to see if they want, I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money. And if the school doesn't get built, that $100,000 is not reimbursable, so it's $100,000 out of pockets. Wouldn't it be prudent to have the referendum for this piece of it, doing the building committee, giving them the $100,000 to do what they need to do?
You mean do the land in year 2?
Well, I moved the land, probably moved the land back, but I would think that if there was a referendum where the townspeople said, yes, we want you to move forward, at least with the investigation part, then there's the blessing to spend that $100,000 from the townspeople. If we put it in and...
You're saying you go to referendum on what?
On whether to pursue doing the school.
No.
Because right now there hasn't been any kind of...
And generally there's not, because you don't have a number. You have no idea what the cost of the new school would be.
Right, but just on the piece.
Right, to do any work, if the building committee wants to do any work,
They need money to do it.
they need money.
Right, so...
And that would go to CIP, it'd have to be approved by the town. And then what would happen is, if it was approved, if that money was approved, they can't just spend money willy-nilly. Anything that they want to do, if they wanted to hire an engineer or an architect to evaluate land, then they would have to go to the Board of Finance. And then the Board of Finance would say, yep, yes, we agree, or no, we disagree. And if the Board of Finance said yes, then it would then go to, I believe, the selectmen to call a town meeting.
Depending on the amount of money.
Depending on the amount of money. And then the town meeting would be where that would be identified. But I don't think there's a referendum for, there's no blanket referendum to say, yes, we want to build a school, or no, because you have no idea.
No, I'm saying that, yes, about investigating, because this is for the investigation part, right? To talk to engineers and architects and do the
Correct.
land search in that way.
Correct. Is there a referendum around that? I don't know.
Yeah, I think especially taking into consideration that it's substantial amount of money, 750,000 plus 100,000, 850,000. I wouldn't take just a decision of us to move ahead with the decision. I would like to have some town involvement. If town wants to spend that money, especially as Dana said, and you explained it to us that it could be a wasted money and never returned if we end up never getting it back. So how about if we'll have maybe a town meeting with a vote for this, and people are will get a full explanation that those money could be lost. We call town meetings on much smaller amounts, so I think that worth calling a town meeting on this amount of money if we want to go forward.
So the thinking is that this is kind of a planning document. It's not a document that authorizes any expenditure. So as a planning, it's kind of a, hey, this is something we see down the horizon for us to recommend to the CIP committee. And the CIP committee also is more of a planning document. It's not absolutely set in stone that it's authorized. But it allows people to see the multi-year picture of where things might fall. And quite honestly, we give them this planning document and they change it every year. And really, it's only the first year that they even vote on. The other ones are theoretical planning. They're not even actual planning. So the process then is that it does go to town meeting. So it doesn't make sense to have a town meeting on a plan when it makes more sense to have a plan and then go to town meeting when you say, oh, I want this to spend on an engineer to do X and Y. So it seems like the cart before the horse is that this is the, hey, this is possible, and then it has to go both to a town meeting and to the Board of Finance and to the Board of Selectmen. There's multiple processes. This is not authorization to spend.
Can I take the part of the process? If it ended up through CIP at the Board of Selectmen and it ended up in year one of the plan, that year one is part of the budget that goes to the townspeople in that budget hearing and then to the referendum for the budget. So there is an opportunity for lots of input from the school and so it doesn't just go from you to say, yes, you're going to spend it.
I guess I'd like to see it segregated. I would hate to see some of this other stuff not taken into consideration. Like, when the people of the town look at this and they look at it as a whole, I'd hate for them to say no on the whole if they have strong feelings about a substantial dollar amount that's on here. That's why if it was segregated, so that people, I would hate to be the one on the building committee to spend all the time and effort and energy to have the people of the town then say, why we don't even want this. If they say, yes, we want this, then you have the blessing to go forward with the plan.
I think it's probably the 100,000 that's kind of in question like that. The 750 for the land, or whatever the price of the land ends up being, would be part of the package that would go to the town as a referendum. Am I correct? Because it would be the land. And I'm guessing we wouldn't buy the land until we know we're building the school when we have the money.
We would be, I think we're a long way from
Yes,
building a new
from
school.
all of that, yeah.
But yes, that would be part of the question, and
So
there
this
is some
is-
risk involved.
Yeah, this is it's just putting that money down on paper to say someday, if we do build a school down the road, that might be what it would cost. So are you just talking about the 100,000 then that you
Yeah, because
feel?
if
And how about 750?
well,
That's
well,
when
the
the school is
750
being built.
won't happen. So say that the building committee gets together and there's a plan that's put forth. If that plan is presented to the town and the town says, yes, we want to go for it, we'll have a much better idea of, and they find a piece of land that they think might work. I mean, let's face it, you can't predict what the land's gonna cost,
Yeah.
right?
Or that they're gonna find it.
Or that they're gonna find it. So if the town says yes, and they can't find land, it's not gonna happen. If the town says no, it doesn't matter whether or not they find land, they're not gonna buy it. So it's the $100,000 where I think that's, especially with some of these other things, that's a pretty substantial sum of money to ask for something that we don't know if the town wants that outcome. And it may, I don't know.
The $100,000 too, remember, is not a quote, it's not a number that came from something. That could be 5 consultants, and you could that building committee could recommend hiring the first consultant, and they could go through the town, it could be $20,000, and that first engineer says, you don't have anything. And if they say, that's all the money that would be spent. If that engineer says, yes, we found a piece of land, that person is interested in selling, the next step then would be, okay, what kind of testing do we have to do on that? And so you might see another chunk of that $100,000. So it's not one, I wrote consultants plural, because it could be numerous consultants. I don't know the number, but I also know that if it's not high enough, you have to go back.
Well, and for building projects, I think that that's too low.
Well, it depends on which phase of the project you're going on. And remember, that's just the consultants to get to referendum. When you get to referendum, the state won't even look at us. If you don't have a piece of land, they'll go, why are you here? You need land. If there's no land, if the town then has land, and then you hire your architect and you do your ed specs and you have all your information, that's what would go to referendum. And it would have to pass referendum before you could even apply to get reimbursement.
And I think it should be voted on before we spend the $100,000 if people move forward.
But what are you voting on?
To pursue it.
I think that's what, and that's not up to the Board of Ed, that's what.
Right, that's why.
That's why we don't want to take responsibility for these questions. I think the most reasonable for this evening, the most reasonable decision to separate that part of the plan, vote for what is really needed, for what we have, what's in our hands, and to come back with that, or vote separately for it, or we need to get more information. Like, for example, I have a question about a building committee, as maybe I missed something, but as far as I understand, when we voted for the building committee, it was supposed to explore. So now, for the exploring, we have to jeopardize $100,000. That's what it's personally me, I cannot support it tonight, 100%, because I do not have enough information for that at least reason. I would like to have more understanding and more information on this particular question. So if we decide, if we separate it from the rest, it's very agreeable. But as for this part, I personally would like to get more information on this.
Michelle?
I think one of the reasons to separate out the building committee potential consultants and the land up front with the actual building further down the line is because if there was someone who was willing to donate land, there's some testing and checking to see whether or not that's feasible. And that might change our calculation as to whether or not we want to build a school. If someone were to give us a piece of property and save us that $750,000, it would be worth $20,000 to have somebody go out and check to see whether or not it's a worthless piece of marsh or a buildable piece of land. So in my mind, this is part of that exploration because the decision might hinge on whether or not we get donated land. So I feel like for a planning document, this allows us to tell CIP that we might need to ask them for some funding. This is not approval because it's still got to go through the Board of Finance. If things stop before we even get there, then it won't get spent. But it's kind of a, it seems short-sighted to not put a possibility for a plan for something that's possible.
Well, I already said my opinion,
It seems that when we were having a discussion about how we should, whether we should recommend to the Board of Selectmen to form a committee to talk about, a building committee, there wasn't, we had some discrepancies because the information that we were using was out, it was dated several years ago. So we didn't have new numbers, but in our budget, we didn't have any money. So by approving this and leaving it in the CIP, it's giving CIP the opportunity to say, yes, we can give some money to this committee to get the information they need that the town is requesting, because there was a lot of requests. Why aren't you giving us new numbers? Because we didn't have the money to do that. But if we don't approve the money, then how are we going to find out if this is a possibility that we can perceive or not? Whether we don't have, you're saying you want more information, but you have to spend money to get more information because the consultants we brought in, they're not talking about specifics with our buildings. They're talking about what they've done from their experience. And we don't know what land we might be using, so we need an opportunity to explore that land. If it's exploratory or if it's a building committee, that's semantics again, and I feel like we need to give, if it falls under Board of Ed, even though the committee is not under Board of Ed, was appointed by the Board of Selectmen, there's a little bit of logistics there, but this may be, according to CIP, where it has to fall, and we should give the opportunity for more information so our town can make an informed decision based on the facts that they're requesting.
I think Elena's point about separating it out might be well taken, because if you separate that out, we're really only looking for $153,500 to work on our schools. But then we would still have that as part of our, but we would see the.
A point of clarification, do you mean by separated out showing a subtotal above the building committee consultants line, showing a subtotal, or do you mean more than one vote on this plan?
No, I mean just having a subtotal of what would actually be spent on the schools, nothing to do with the new school, and then have a separate number, which would be the money, the $1,000, $100,000 for the consultant, and the figure for the land. So that those, you can see that we're not asking them right now for $1 million. You know, we're really asking them next year for $153,500. So that's just a suggestion.
How much was asked for last year and how much did the Board of Ed get? Roughly.
It's varied a lot from year to year depending upon what the particular projects are. Sometimes we move things up and sometimes things move back. So for example, like the HMS columns in the front of the building have been on the plan, I think, for as long as I've been on the board. And when the oil tank went, even though it had been approved, we asked them to, you know, switch it around so we could buy the oil tank. Do you remember that same way? Yeah.
Last year was the roof, so it was, I mean, it was.
Okay, I just wasn't.
Last year was not a typical year. I mean, I think they figured out
So,
it'd be $1 million.
Yeah, because the other years, like, forgetting about the school stuff, the other years look like they're in.
The other thing, everybody in town is going and asking CIP, you know, all
There are
the,
about 35 other projects
Right.
besides your project.
so they have to prioritize the town, you know, and decide how it's going.
Elena, you have the floor.
yeah, well, because this is not just a project, it's a direction of our town, everything was connected to the school. So I would insist, if we want to vote, I would insist to separate and vote separately for those items, in order to not slow down the real need projects at current projects. Then we can deal separately with everything, whatever is connected to the building committee.
When it goes to CIP, don't they deal with it? I mean, they deal with it, this is Board of Ed but they deal with each item and prioritize it from there.
They're gonna
And I would
make their
trust
own
that
priorities,
they, I would trust that the people we have appointed, have been appointed to the CIP, are intelligent enough to understand the difference between this is what's gonna go to our school right now, and this is what might be needed for the building committee, because they keep up with they are on other committees and they are up with what's going on in the town, because they need to be, so they can make decisions about all the people who are coming to talk to them. That's my feeling about it.
For now, at this point, the town trusted us to take a decision, what do we want to move forward, and with which speed, first year, second, third, so.
But that goes to CIP decides that, we don't decide that.
But now
We
it's up to us
recommend.
to recommend. I wouldn't recommend it. That's simple. I wouldn't recommend this year to move this amount of money with so many questions in the air, with so many people, with so many discussions in the air. I wouldn't recommend to move ahead with this, with the whole plan.
But we're not voting on this money, CIP is.
Elaine, is it the?
It's not us, it's the CIP.
No, that just, whatever is connected with the school, with building a new school, with the building committee spending, with the money spending, I'm not sure I agree with that amount. I would like to know a little more about that, and I don't want to stand behind the recommendation for this amount of money at this point, while there are so many questions in the town about this whole
So
process.
what is the amount?
So everything without the school
No, but
connected.
if you want to, you're saying you want to continue the conversation, what is the amount that would continue the conversation? Because if you don't put a dollar amount to it,
Okay. So
you have to have, you have to have.
153,000 without this?
Well, 850,000 was the amount that would be budgeted for.
But if you just subtract this, the
Let's subtract
850,
it, yes.
if you just hit, Elena, if you just subtract the $850,000, you're not putting a dollar towards that project. There's nothing going to be done. The building committee is just going to look at each other and say, well, we would like to do this, but there's no dollar amount that anyone's put to it.
Well, I thought it was going to be a building committee to explore the question. So when we talk about financial involvement, there was no finances involved, it was pure exploration. So this is the first time I hear that. So I would like just to get more understanding of it. That's it.
And my concern was more that the town vote on whether they want to pursue it. And then if they say, yes, we want to pursue it, then they should have the $100,000 or whatever is a
Right,
reasonable
the
fund.
pursue though, and this is I think we've said this is a frustrating part of the process because everyone wants the cost of the land yesterday.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about the cost of it. Some people have come up to me and they are just, they absolutely do not want a new school, and some people do want a new school. So
Right,
that
the balance.
question doesn't really have to so much necessarily have anything to do with dollars. I know the
But
dollars
this
factor in.
board made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to look into building. They didn't say renovate, they didn't say status quo. The Board of Education, basically what you, and this is, I'm telling you what this looks like to me, is if you remove this 850, you're basically saying, you're making a new recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. You're saying that there's no dollar amount tied to it. I'm not saying you do that full amount, maybe that's the amount, but if you don't put any money to it, that building committee does not have the capacity to investigate what you have this Board of Education recommend.
So why don't, if you move the land for the school, year two,
You could do that.
and then change that 100,000 to something like 50,000, which the
And-
town may never, you know.
And they may, the CIP committee may say, it's 20. That's what you got. You're gonna have, the building committee's gonna have to work with 20. They're gonna have to determine that. But that's the number that was in there was just to get, because we don't know what the number is for a consultant. And what testing would have to be done.
I just think those are really two separate questions. And to vote for all this as one, that would be wrong. I would even suggest to table this till the next meeting, if we can't agree on separating.
I present next week though.
It has to be presented. Phil, do I understand?
Okay, okay, I did not know that.
Phil, did you say that according to the CIP paperwork, I heard you say something that
You have.
it says we have to include this stuff in there if we have recommended as a board, which we unanimously agreed, those that were present, to send a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that we must include these things somehow, whether we put them in year 1, year 3, year 5, and CIP switches it around to accommodate. If we don't put these in here, we're not complying with those rules. Is that correct?
That's according to what's in our CAP. That's what's supposed to be.
However, we can always modify figures that are in this worksheet,
Sure.
you know?
I think what's important for us to recognize is that while we might change what's in this worksheet, once it goes to CIP, it doesn't matter. We don't really change what's in this worksheet. This is like here's a good idea. So here's what I would recommend as a compromise, so we can move on this. That we move the land for the new school into year 2, and we split the building committee consultants into 50,000 in year 1 and 50,000 in year 2. This way, it would give them some money to start and to find some consultants. They may never go any further. We all know that year 2 is going to have to be renegotiated a whole second time, not just the first time.
CIP is going to do what they can with what money they have, right? They're not going to take they're not going to take what we say as gospel. If they have to say yes to it, they're going to say we don't have that much money, and they're going to change it around. So this is kind of like a moot point.
Says that Board of Finance is going to say something else. So we just want to
just give it, making a vote so we can get those started.
So I would.
Well,
May I make a motion?
I thought we're still discussing.
yes.
So I move that we accept the Willington Public Schools CIP priority map with 3 edits. One is to move the building committee consultants, split that amount between year 1 and year 2. The second is to move the land for the new school into year 2. And the third was to move the clocks system, the PA, from year 3 to year 2.
So what was the second one? So you want to?
So split the 100,000 into 50,000 in year 1 and 50,000 in year 2. Move the 750 into year 2. And move the clock and PA systems from year 3, the 24,703, into year 2.
I second that.
I would suggest can we vote separately for all those items, not at once?
You can. You can have
Point of order.
a division.
Can I say a point of order? How do I say that? Do we have to have, say we're having a discussion? I'm confused about the order, Robert's rules of order right now. I'm confused about what we're doing here.
The main motion, we'll be discussing the main motion.
Okay.
But we have a division.
We have a motion on the table.
You have more than one motion.
Well, the second motion would be to divide the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah,
know.
to vote separately for each of your suggestions?
We didn't want to vote.
to divide the question. You
Divide the
can
question.
have a motion to divide the
One motion is
question
to
after it's an
divide the
amendment
question.
vote.
We vote on each one of the items separately.
Just for purposes down here, Tracy, at the bottom, it says divide the question. It's like
Is that what we said? 'Cause
divide the motion. It's the
We've
second
never
from the
had to do
bottom.
any of this before, and
I
I'm
know.
still kind of new at this after 2 years, so I apologize. But
No,
I
that's
feel
right.
very confused right now. It is getting late into
Yeah,
the
we
night,
never
and
did
we're
it
just,
before. But,
I don't remember
the
ever
motion
having to
is-
divide the
the
motion. I don't know how to.
The motion is in order. And now, did you get a second?
Yes, I want a second. You want me to second this divided motion? That's
You made the motion,
You
didn't
made the
you?
motion to divide the motion.
Okay. I make the motion to divide the motion made by Michelle Cunningham on 3 separate items.
So I have a question because I'm not up on this. I was hoping that the clock system would be moved to year 1 because it was safety instead of year 2. Is that acceptable? I don't know is that acceptable to
We
move
would
it
have
from
to
year?
have a second first on the motion to divide before we can address that piece. So
Okay, so then I second the motion to divide.
Donna, I think that was part
Which
3
means-
of your motion, right, Michelle?
we would get to that. If we divide, it'll go
We'll be
further.
voting on each one of the items separately.
each one of the items in my,
In your,
not every single one of these,
No,
right? Just
just the
three changes.
changes. The building committee, the land, and the other one, which was
The clock system.
okay. Okay. Now we need a motion to either move or delete.
You wanted to move the motion, you wanted to move the clock?
Just one of the items.
No, we have to vote to divide first.
Number one.
We haven't voted to
I
divide
thought we
first.
did.
No, we haven't, we have a
Okay,
motion, but we haven't voted.
Okay.
I second
All those in favor of the motion to divide these three items signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it passes, I guess. Okay, so we're back to the division. Okay, which one do you want to vote on first?
So, do you want to take them in order?
What was the one?
So the first one was to divide the building committee consultants into 2 years, 50,000 in year 1 and 50,000 in year 2.
Can I hear a second? Okay, I'll second. Okay. Now, any discussion?
I think I would feel comfortable if that amount goes to 20,000, not to 50.
That's not part of the motion.
It's not a part of the motion? Okay.
We're splitting it 50 for the first year, 50 for the second year.
And that's, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
What's your?
Hmm?
You didn't vote.
Yes, you did.
So what was the outcome?
Okay, I'll change my vote. Okay.
Can you just clarify
Can you
what,
clarify
when the votes, how they
What's the
go?
new outcome?
Okay. So that we've taken care of the building committee now.
Can you
50,000.
please clarify the
No,
outcome of that vote?
So is it allowed, you
everyone
want to
heard-
change the
not
vote? Is it
everyone
allowed
heard.
to change the vote?
What
Can you
was,
change the vote?
what was the outcome of the vote we just had? Could someone?
And what were we voting on, because at this point I'm missing, I don't know where we are.
So the,
Can the secretary read back what just happened, please?
Donna just stepped in the restroom. I'm gonna go get my water.
Email? Oh, probably, yeah, I can match it up, yeah. We can get your email, so.
I can't do it after.
I know, we just,
Brenda
print it out.
making it look like it's in grades. It's word.
I have hours tonight.
Who was the other one?
So
These two.
this one was the 50,000, this was the move, and the other one was the clock.
Right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the motion was made by Michelle to split the 100,000 between year 1 and year 2, 50,000 each. Herb seconded the motion. The vote was Michelle and Tracy and Herb for Elena, Donna, and Liz against. Then you said something about changing your
Did you get
vote.
Ann's vote?
Yeah, I
Yes.
just went for
Yeah, I
four.
changed my vote.
So you changed your vote. So I need to change what I recorded. Okay.
So what does that mean? Can we do it? Does
means
that
it's
mean
not
it-
split.
we can't do the split?
In other
So
words-
we're back to the 100 in year one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on with number 2.
Okay, everyone's back. Okay,
Number 2 is the 750,000.
yeah, 750. I'll entertain a motion on land for the new school.
So I move that we move 750,000 for the land for the new school from year 1 into year 2.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Hold on. It's so hard to think 10 o'clock. So such
Okay,
serious questions. I would really suggest the table of this. It's so serious and with this. Oh, I know.
No,
Yes. Sorry.
You're just
I
taking
forgot.
more time talking about.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to move land for the new school of $750, 750,000 from the first year to the second year.
I would suggest it to move it for the 3rd year. That's my opinion. But I mean, I know the
That's
motion
not
is
the
not.
motion.
I know.
Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And the other one was the clock system.
There were other opinions though, so I won't make this motion. There are people who want to do
I'll
that.
make that motion. I move that
Okay.
we move the clock PA system from year 2 to year 1.
Year 3 to year 1.
It's in year
It's in
3.
year
Oh, year
3.
3 to year, I'm sorry, year 3
Year three.
to year 1.
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Everyone understand the motion? All those in favor of moving the CES clock system from the 3rd year to the 1st year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It's unanimous.
It's a good thing to do. Has
Okay.
Hall already, Phil, has Hall
No.
already been updated with that or no? No.
Now you want to approve of the entire thing?
Well, now you need to figure out, yeah, you could figure out what you're gonna do with the remainder of it, and then what's your plan with the land? Or,
So-
sorry, with the
so
consultant.
I move that we approve the Willington Public Schools CIP map as amended in
I'll
its
second
entirety.
that.
For the year
For the
2020.
year 2020,
Okay.
2020-21.
Can you read that motion back?
Michelle moves to approve the Willington Public Schools CIP map for the year 2020 to 2021 as amended.
Everyone understand the motion?
Means we
We're
have.
approving this and go to CIP. They will fiddle with it, I can imagine.
Fiddle's a good word.
I know they'll change everything. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Okay.
Did you vote for?
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't have to vote.
Oh, no, that puts us back. We would really.
Yeah.
No, he could be the tiebreaker, like the vice president in the Senate.
Okay, we're moving on. We have an item here to request the Board of Selectmen to hold a town meeting to patch the school roofs. There's both Hall School and Center School.
Yeah, so I attended the November Board of Finance meeting to relay a request, which was to put a 10-year roof on, this is what you voted on Center School and Patch Hall School for $88,000. The Board of Finance did not approve your request, instead voted for patching of both buildings, $16,900. I'm gonna attend their meeting again on Thursday to gain more information about what they wanna do beyond the patching, because it wasn't clear to me if they're asking for full replacement after that. I will tell you that on December 16th, the First Selectwoman and I went to the state. We met with officials from the Office of School Construction, including the director, the primary grant reviewer, and the architects to gather information regarding the building committee and impact on upcoming projects, including the roof. It was made clear to us that we could submit a grant application, but the grant reviewer said flat out to us, I wouldn't bank on it. Correct?
Correct.
So, as a board, you need to decide if you just want to make this motion to patch the roofs for $16,900, or if you want to ask the Board of Finance, ask me to ask the Board of Finance for something different. But I will tell you that if we put in an application for full replacement of both roofs, chances are we will be denied our application and you will be paying the full $1 million.
I think that what we had asked for was the patching of one and, what did we ask
It
for?
was the 10-year roof
10-year,
at Center School,
and the patch,
and the
so we
patch at
split the
Hall.
vote, okay.
and basically what they said was, it was a 6-0 vote that said no. I've heard there's been further discussion that what we were told was not accurate, but we're sitting with the Director of Department of Administrative Services and School Construction and Grants, and that's what we were told.
Now, at the present time, do we have a problem with leakage and?
At the current time, yes.
Is there any mold?
No.
Mold associated with that?
There's been no mold so far when we've tested, but the leaks need attention as soon as possible. I guess the question you have to determine is, the fastest route to a temporary solution is this $16,900. But what you recommend beyond that is Board of Education buildings, it's Board of Education recommendation. If you don't make the recommendation to the selectmen, then I don't know that the Board of Finance can make that recommendation. So you have to figure that out, what happens next.
The Board of Finance has already made that motion to the selectmen, but because you hadn't had a meeting, there had been discussion from your board, because they amended your plan, so.
How much is in the capital reserve? Million?
I don't know the existing line. There's been some funds that have come out of that, including monies that went to the fire department most recently. So I don't have those numbers in front of me. You have to check
But they
them out.
probably
Our
have,
boiler.
they probably have
The boiler doesn't
16,000 or more.
There's yes, the money that the Board of Finance agreed upon was already available, so they know that 16,000 was available, yes.
That 16,000 is coming out of the amount of money that was approved for the roof project.
Okay, Tracy, you got a question?
I was just gonna comment, you asked if there was still a problem. I'm hearing from school teachers that they're having to go in before they start their school day and get help to clean up. So they clean up water so that they can have their class in the gym or in different places, because whenever it rains or it's melting, there's a problem. So it's impacting our teachers and our students.
There are approximately 10 buckets on video in the center school gym.
And one in the
He
library.
ropes off and teaches around. So it is still a significant problem. This is, again, this is a temporary fix. I don't know if it's going to stop the leaks. They're going to identify as best they can for this amount of money and do their best.
But this is what.
But they're not guaranteeing the leaks to stop. What they will say is, that looks like a leak right there, I'm going to patch right there, but if it leaks right there, that's not guaranteed.
How did you have a question
So
or comment?
they won't give us enough money to patch it properly? I guess I wanted.
The 16 was what the patching quote was for both buildings. So we got a quote Remember, this is, I ran a bunch of different scenarios.
It's on page 7 in the minutes from the November meeting when we discussed it. If people want to see it.
The patching total was a lot more at Hall than it was at Center. But it still has patching at Center. Patching includes some of the work on the seam of the building with brick. It's all connected to the Stopping the Leaks project is basically what it is. The total, if you were just going to patch, again, which is a short-term solution, was $16,900. That is the amount of money that the Board of Finance approved.
So, which is less than what was.
What you asked for, yeah.
You asked for $88,000, and that would have put a 10-year guarantee roof over Center School, and that's a guarantee, no leaks. They stand by it, and a patch at Hall School.
But that's not what we're allowed to have.
They declined.
Okay, so if this is, I mean, not that this is a great solution, but if this is all we'll get, I mean, it's gotta be patched, even if we end up replacing it later.
Right, the
This
best
is
thing.
the patch job.
If you want to give me more recommendations, I'm going to go back there on Thursday anyways, but the faster you can move, if you say, hey, go back and ask again, I will do that. If they say no again, then if you did a vote tonight that said we're going to recommend to the selectmen, that they call a town meeting to approve this.
I don't think we have the time though, because teachers and the kids are being
You have to
ripped
do a
on.
town meeting. You have to.
I mean, but as far as how much longer is that gonna be, even though this isn't the best answer?
This
This isn't,
69,
isn't the best answer, but it's winter time and it's rainy, and if it's impacting the kids for now, and this is all they're going to give us, I would hate for the kids to wait longer and the teachers to wait longer and to have other problems, even though we know that this may not be the best solution.
the two products between the patching and the 10-year roof can both be done as long as there's not a foot of snow on the roof and it's dry at any time.
I just had a question about where the 16.9 came from when the quote talked about in the November meeting was 20,000 for both buildings. So is the Board of Finance coming back with a different number? Because that's what they have. I'm just trying to figure out the difference in the price.
The 16.9 is the patch at both buildings.
Oh, okay, because in the minutes it said approximately 20,000, so it's just, okay, that was just an approximate number, okay.
Okay, Michelle?
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Education recommend to the Board of Selectmen to call a town meeting to authorize up to $16,900 be taken from capital reserve for the patching of both Hall and Center School roofs.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so good. Okay. I'd like to add an item to the agenda at this time. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting on December 17th.
I think we kind of,
I think that's been
I think we're okay.
You're
Handle
okay?
it? Yeah?
Okay, if I don't get a second, that's fine. Okay. Okay, no second, so that motion is denied. Okay. Well, finally, I know it's been a long evening for you, but present to speak is next, and we'll start with you.
Well, good to see you all, and I wish to thank the chair and the entire board for their service to our community, and the long hours you're going to be putting in. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Anyone else?
Erica Oshinsky, 19 Adamek Road. There's lots of discussion about CIP and your projects and how they play out into the plan. I encourage you as members of the Board of Education to attend those CIP meetings. and be part of the conversation there. I also encourage you, in the past, there's been representation from a member of the Board of Education to CIP. Currently, there are no seats on that committee, but as they come up, I would certainly encourage a member from the Board of Education to sit on CIP as a member. It's something to think about in the future so that you have representation on CIP.
Does the committee appoint?
It is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. It's an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, but certainly as residents of the town, there's no conflict in you being members of that committee. There are members of Board of Finance outside of the chair that are members of that committee, and there has been a member of the Board of Education in the past. So I believe next year we will have 2 seats open. Next year's the year after, every 2 years, or every year you'll see 2 seats. There are 6 available seats. So something for your membership to consider in the future.
There are 12 members.
There are 6 members, and then the first selectman and the chair of the Board of Finance, and then our business manager is a non-voting member.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I come in for the meeting? CIP?
So currently we're meeting every Wednesday at 6:30 here in the town office building. Each week could be different, upstairs or downstairs. We are tomorrow night upstairs, but right now they're every Wednesday between now and the end of February. So it's a shorter term commitment. With all you have going on, it's certainly not, but it gives you a voice at the table and something to think about in the future and another way to serve.
Okay.
Trojevsky, Fenton Bluffs Drive. It's been a long night. Thank you all very much for your efforts in serving on the board. I did at one time, so I know what you're going through, so I appreciate it. Especially you, Herb. I just have one question. There was a lawfully held meeting on December 17th by the Board of Ed. It wasn't put on this agenda. I wanted to know why.
Well, we met with the attorney, and we made a decision to elect the chair and the secretary, and that's where we are at the present time. So that we have kind of resolved the issue. It's not resolved completely yet, but it's in the process.
And then, can I
Keep it brief.
yeah. And the next meeting, we're gonna choose a vice chair together as one board during the next meeting.
So you're basically saying that the meeting that was held on the 17th, which was legally called meeting, it was posted, it was held, and minutes were recorded, that meeting doesn't exist and doesn't hold.
Oh no, it doesn't mean it. It just means we found a compromise in this conflict, and we are hoping to dissolve it fully during the next meeting. But the minutes, if we have to, we can always come back, because it was a fully lawful meeting. From our point of view, that's how we look at it. And we can always vote for those minutes if that doesn't go how we agreed, so that would go. So we did not say that it's illegal meeting, it just doesn't apply. We just found a peaceful decision at this point.
It's probably in the best interest of the town, the community, and the board to resolve it. Otherwise, we haven't completely resolved it yet, but we're trying to work together and reach a compromise and prevent litigation and that type of thing. And I think the board is a very congenial board. I think we'll be able to all work together, and I think that's one of the things we want to do.
Awesome.
We don't want to do anything to hold up the educational process of the children in town. A lot of things that Phil brings in here are important for the running of the school, and we want to make sure that that's taken care of, and that takes precedent over everything.
Okay. Once again, thank you all very much for your time and your commitment and everything that you're doing from both parties. because I think it's important for the town, and I know it's a huge commitment, and it's a lot of time, not only in this meeting, but in prep and all that stuff, so thank you again.
Thank you. Yes.
Jan's Castle, 18 Penny Hill Road. I want to put some positives into the meeting. We haven't talked much about kids tonight, and so I have a couple of things. For those of you who don't know, I teach music at Center School. There is a concert tomorrow night and I openly invite anybody who is interested in coming at Center School at 6:30. It is the 4th grade winter concert. We will have 4th grade chorus members, and for the first time, the 4th grade band students will also be doing short numbers. It will be, they've only been playing for 3 months or so, so they are just getting to their things. Are you asking a question?
No, I.
Oh, okay.
What time is that?
6:30 in the all-purpose room at Center School. And the other thing that I just wanted to highlight was that Center School is going to be starting a program on Friday that's called Looking for the Good. And it's a 2-week concentrated program on character and looking for the good and gratitude, a sense of gratitude from the students. So the students are going to be, that kickoff is on Friday, and so you should be hearing more about that, but it's 2 weeks starting on Friday. Some of the 4th graders, and I believe there was a grant to get some of the materials for that, and that kickoff, so that's a positive thing that's happening. I think the kickoff is sometime, they're doing an assembly in the afternoon, maybe 2-ish. I'm not positive because I'm not there on Friday, so I'm not there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from Kelly? Okay, if not, board comments. Well, I'll start it off, I'll be very brief. I want to thank all the board members for their efforts this evening, and we're chatting on the course, I guess, and I think everything's going to be fine down the road. So we're trying to work together. We'll have our differences, but it's not a person. Who would like to be next? Michelle?
I want to apologize for texting so much during this meeting for the new board members. That is not generally accepted practice. I have a family health emergency. I've stayed tonight. I'm going to be up hours yet. So I do apologize, but it was necessary.
I'm going to pass. I'm very good.
I'm just grateful that we had a meeting. Thank you.
It's going to be a learning process, but I'm all in.
Good, thank you. Stacy?
I'd just like to hope that we will continue to uphold the Board of Education goals that majority of us, the incumbent members voted unanimously about last year for student growth and success, school culture and climate, and sustainable strategic investments for school facilities, which we can explain a little more to the new members. We have an attachment from the prior. And also remember that we've always strive to, in the past, strive to continue our commitment to our students, maintaining small class sizes with personalized attention, ongoing professional development for staff to improve instructional practices, after-school activities, and priorities of our community, parents, and Board of Education, which have been asked for by parents and the community members through a survey.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have one other item on our agenda. We're going into executive session to discuss a personnel matter and the board's request for emergency leave. So thank you all for coming, and I think we'll have executive session.
Can I just get this going for the last one?